I'm Bill Nelson. Thank you to the Ramon Foundation, the Ministry of Innovation, Science, and Technology, the Israel Space Agency, and Tel Aviv University for organizing this remarkable event every year and inviting me very kindly to join you. I'm honored to be sharing the stage with leaders from the space agencies around the world. I'm also glad to participate in this important event with my counterparts from both the UAE and Israel. And it's in the spirit of collaboration and fellowship. Back in 2010, when I was in the Senate, my colleagues and I worked to develop a new plan forward for NASA, one where we invest in the commercial space sector so that NASA can set its sights on exploring further out into the cosmos. And it's exciting to see this vision is coming together. We've launched 14 astronauts to the International Space Station as part of the Commercial Crew Program. And that includes several of our international partners. And at the end of March, the first private astronaut mission to the ISS, Axiom 1, will have Israeli citizen Eitan Stibbe, and he'll be a part of that crew. And it's fitting that we are talking about the next Israeli in space at this memorial conference. Not only will Eitan be a part of this historic mission, he will also continue the tradition of human spaceflight for Israel and in memory of our friend Ilan Roman. It's an exciting time for commercial space, and it's an exciting time for Israel is at the cutting edge of these endeavors as we usher in the next era of space exploration. This spring, the Space Launch System will make its first trip around the moon in preparation for future crewed missions back to the moon and then eventually to the surface. The SLS is the most powerful rocket ever. It is 8.8 million pounds of thrust at liftoff, and it is the backbone of our Artemis program. We're going to the moon, we're going to learn, we're going to prepare, and then we are going to Mars. An important payload on Artemis 1 will be the AstroRad radiation vest, contributed by Israel and other international and commercial partners. Worn by the mannequins on board, this experiment will improve our ability to prepare for and limit the effects of radiation exposure as humans travel on longer space missions. All the activity in low Earth orbit and beyond means that it's more important than ever that we come together to safeguard the space environment. A growing number of nations have signed on to the Artemis Accords because we believe this next era of exploration should be done peacefully, safely, and transparently. And we are looking forward to Israel signing the accord soon. And I thank you for that. And as we look to the moon, I want to highlight Israel's Bereshit mission, the first private lunar surface mission. We look forward to the exciting new Bereshit 2 mission and the collaborations to come. And so I want to thank Israel for an incredibly meaningful partnership. We can do more, we can go farther, and we can work together. Thank you, and have a wonderful conference.
Good morning. I am delighted to open this special session of the 17th Ilan Ramon International Space Conference on Space Agency's Vision in the Era of New Space. This morning's panel includes distinguished speakers from diverse cultures and geographies, representing established as well as emerging space agencies. As we begin, I want to put forward a provocative issue. In the last decade, global space activity experienced a dramatic expansion of the commercial space activity and growth of national space ecosystems. And as part of this trend, space agencies lost some of their dominance in the overall global space activity. So I would like to ask, do we still need space agencies in an age of national space ecosystems? Before I ask our speakers to respond to this question, let's get to know them first. So our first speaker is Lisa Campbell, President of the Canadian Space Agency. Before taking this position, Ms. Campbell served in various defense and civil government positions, which allowed her a diverse and comprehensive perspective on public-private interrelations. Last October, she was also elected as a vice president of the International Astronautical Federation. Congratulations, Lisa. Our second speaker is Carlos de Moura, president of Brazil's space agency in the last 3 years. He is an aeronautical infrastructure engineer working in the space segment since '85. He is well experienced in diverse space projects in Brazil and abroad. Lionel Suchet, Chief Operating Officer of CNES, who began his long career in human spaceflight, working on missions to Mir. He later undertook diverse positions in CNES, which allowed him a deep acquaintance with the operation of the International Space Station, microgravity applications, astronomy, telecommunications, navigation, Earth observation, as well as defense. Additionally, he also serves as a vice president at the International Astronautical Federation. Our fourth speaker today is Salem Qubaisi, Director General of the UAE Space Agency. He has over 20 years of experience in military aviation and defense in both the public and the private sectors. In his current role, he leads the agency's efforts to develop space science, advanced technologies, set up related regulations and policies, establish bilateral and multilateral international partnerships, and promote national overall capabilities. Last but not least, Oron, Director General of the Israel Space Agency, who is a fighter pilot with command and operational experience of over 30 years in the Israel Air Force and the IDF, where he served in various positions. Uri brings extensive knowledge to the Israel Space Agency in managing complex systems and implementing broad-scale strategies, large budgets, and state-of-the-art technologies. And now that we've known all of our speakers, let's go to our discussion. And let me come back to the question that I posed at the beginning, and I would like to ask all of you to share your thoughts with us. So, in an age of national space ecosystems in which the private sector is a growth engine propelling the space activity in both technology and vision, do you still see merit for space agencies? Now, I assume that in your positions, you probably do see merit. So in what way has your agency's role also changed over the last few years? So Lisa, let's hear from you first.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for that wonderful question. What an exciting time we're living in. It is more competitive, more congested, but that's very exciting because more than ever, we need the perspective that space brings us. Space shows us that we can advance technology, that we can solve complex problems here on Earth. And space agencies around the world have collaborated for decades on issues that are very difficult. You can see the recent example of the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope. We did that, the Canadian Space Agency, with the European Space Agency and with NASA. And it took, many years of preparation, technological development to achieve what we hope will be magnificent for the world. It'll show us the origins of the universe. So space agencies continue to have a very important role positioning the space sector internationally, our domestic space sectors, securing new opportunities, advancing unique capabilities, and opening doors to international markets. Especially small and medium-sized businesses. In Canada, they make up 94% of our space sector. When I was recently at the International Astronautical Congress in Dubai, I also signed several agency-to-agency agreements. International collaboration is the bedrock of success in space programs. It's also heavily research and development focused, and national space agencies can help support innovation at that very early stage before it can be commercialized and when it has tremendous potential. So although there's a lot of innovation happening in industry, companies often require their national space agencies to seed their innovation. States are also responsible for the space activities of their nationals. You've probably seen a lot of the debate around debris, congestion in space, making sure that the night sky is visible and that there's equity of access to space. So it's up to governments to set the parameters under which industry can operate, that it's predictable, that the risks are not greater than they need to be, and to make sure that it's the right conditions for companies to innovate while ensuring that activities are done safely, sustainably, peacefully, in compliance with international space governance. So the Outer Space Treaty and other international agreements continue to be a foundation for shaping how we interact in space. It's vital, more than ever, to make sure that we've got rules and norms of behavior for the safe, sustainable, and peaceful use of outer space for the benefit of all. It's why Canada joined the Artemis Accords, a set of principles designed to guide signatories in the safe and sustainable use of outer space. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Lisa. Carlos, can you share your thoughts with us?
Yes, for sure. I would remind you that we have the opportunity to meet in Dubai last October, and really it was a very good opportunity to discuss with companies, with the agencies, with governments, and most of the words were cooperation, innovation, challenges, and certainly sustainability. It was one of the most heard words I heard, that sustainability. So I believe that one of the most important roles for the agencies is to assure that we can have a sustainable exploitation of the space, a sustainable environment for the companies, a sustainable environment for the public policies that we should apply to solve our national problems, our national demands. So I believe that the agencies still have and will continue to have an important role, because if on one side we have that competition that's kind of go the race for the space with the grounding and competition in the space, on the other hand, we should restore trust and we should assure some kind of cooperation. So I believe certainly that the private sector will continue improving that role, but it's like in the, let's say, the economic market. Some people believe that we should more liberal, some others believe that we should more regulated, but anyway, we could not deliver just to the market the role to do everything, because they will try to optimize their business, but the general interest certainly not be attended. So one of the main roles, in my opinion, for the agency is that how to equalize the different interests and how to assure a kind of means to cooperate with the countries in order to explore the space, because in the space we have no boundaries. So how to act in this really challenging environment. And in Dubai, I repeat, it was a very good opportunity to see how the ecosystem is changing and how we can advance with the agencies and with the private sector also.
Thank you, Carlos. And both of you mentioned the wonderful IAC conference in Dubai. So let's move to Dubai and ask Salem, what are your thoughts on this provocative issue?
Thank you very much for the question. Let me start off by saying thank you to everyone, especially for the organizer of this conference, but also for everybody who made it in person to Dubai in the IAC conference. It was an excellent forum for everybody to meet face to face and to reignite, the energy within the space sector that really showed dividends in the outcomes that we had from this Congress. For returning to the question, I would sincerely say yes. I see a significant role for space agencies in the future. The role of agencies has evolved to develop, enable, and upscale innovations to create a supportive ecosystem in the space economy. In UAE, our space agency have recently announced the new strategic direction for coming period, with clear focus and supportive legal and regulatory framework, bringing together infrastructure and national research facilities to increase utilization and private sector benefits, and building national capabilities through enabling the private sector's contribution to the diversification of national economy. The continuous effort comes from its deep value and recognition of the essence of space and its significant impact on improving daily human lives, and its role in general as a driver for socio-economic sustainable development of the country and the world as a whole. Unlocking commercial opportunities with the private sector and the rapidly expanding space economy will help to inspire future generations and encourage youth to explore in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This is one of the pivotal roles space agency have to play. At the UAE Space Agency, we launched the Space Economic Zone program, an integrated program that supports national and international space companies. The program focuses on stimulating innovation and adapting space technology in commercial space ecosystem through offering a variety of solutions such as access to space facilities, including acceleration and incubation programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Salem. So from Dubai to France, Lionel, you come from a well-established space agency. How do you see the trends that are shaking the dominance of agencies?
Thanks a lot, Deganit. It's a very interesting and important question. But first of all, I want to thank you for the invitation of this conference and to give me the opportunity to talk about that. As you said at the beginning, as was involved very deeply at the beginning of my career on manned space flight. And we will speak about the development of space activity. And we all know that inspiration is very important for that. And how important is the role of astronauts in this domain. And for me, it's very important to honor the memory of Ilan Ramon these days. So thanks a lot to give me this opportunity. Yes, role of agency in this period. Are we less useful or are we useless? I think, on the contrary, we are more needed and more useful than ever. And I would like to explain that to you. First, what is new space? Some people think that it is something replacing an old space. It's not at all the case. It's a development, an enrichment of the domain, which is very good for all the activities, but it's not a new activity by itself. The fact is that the digital revolution and also the miniaturization of technologies allows now space to tackle new domains of activities, new application for agriculture, fishery, land management, mobility, insurance, health, tourism, in fact, all kinds of human activities. It's very new because we were devoted for a very long time to very etatic and strategic aspects such as defense and science. Now it is a new type of activities which are more and more important and which brings new actors, new people ready to take risks, which is very linked to innovation, ready to put money on the table, private money, to make business with space. It's very new, but it is not replacing a strategic aspect of space. And that is why in this landscape, for sure, space agency are useful for classical aspects of space, which remain very important. National sovereignty, you know, defense is more and more important in space. Last year, the air army in France became the army of air and space. It's very new. It's very important. Science also. When we speak about new application, it's not because you receive 0 and 1, I think, digital data that you bring a new application. You need science, you need research to do that. And so it's still etatic and institutional and very important. And we have space allows also to tackle very social subjects such as climate change. Climate change is now very important and it can be tackled by space, and it is also a very important aspect for the government and for institutional aspects. So in this domain, agencies are still important, useful, needed, and maybe more and more. But on top of that, we have also now to help this new ecosystem to develop, and we have more and more competitiveness. Competitivity is a key aspect of space. Lisa talked about cooperation. It is very important, and agencies play and CNES play a very strong role on cooperation. But we have also more and more competition in space also, and so agencies, government must help more and more competitiveness of their industry. This is also a very important thing. We have also to help new actors. As I said, we have new actors, we have startups. In France, some years ago, we had 2-3 startups every 3 years. Last year in France, we helped 50 startups, new startups developing for space application, space infrastructure even, and we had to deal with them. So it is a new role for us also to help that. Also, it has been said, regulation of use of space is more and more important because we have more and more satellites, more and more frequencies to be used, and so regulation is more important, and it is a role of agency to deal with that. So it is also important. And last but not least, we have to prepare our societies to use more and more space tomorrow. And this is also a very strategic and important role for our governments and a role for the agencies. So because of this huge and rapid development of space domain, I'm sure that the space agencies and institutional activities for space are more and more needed and more useful. The second question, Deganit, if I may, is did you change, or do we have to change? What is the role of the new role of the agency? I would say that the role is the same, and we have 60 years old at CNES. We had the 60th anniversary in December last year, and from the very beginning we do the same. We propose as an agency the space policy to the government. We have 2 caps, so we are an agency and a technical center. As a technical center, we implement, when it is decided, this policy for developing space, and we develop the ecosystem. So the role remains the same, but the ways and the means to fulfill the role is very different, and is changing a lot. At the beginning, we went from a white page, no industry, no laboratory of research in France, nothing. And we had to create everything in-house because nothing was there. But when we began to have industry involved, when we began to have laboratories, then we passed to them all the activity we can pass to them. And we put our activity as an agency as a point where it is at more added value. And it is what we did from the very beginning and what we do now. But because of this quick evolvement, we had to develop new tools, new ways to work with industry, new tools new tools to help a new development of startups. We have, for instance, Connect by CNES with a tool for ideation, incubation, acceleration, financial tools. I can give you some details about that if you need. We have new relationship with industry also, large and small, with more procurement of services and not only procurement of infrastructure. So we develop that also. And education, as I said, we can't say that space is important for our future without preparing our youth to the use of space. So we put also a big activity, a big priority to education in France. So we change a lot our activities. We change a lot the way to play the role, even if the role is the same from the very beginning, and even if I'm sure that we are needed more and more useful as an institutional organism and a space agency.
Thank you, Lionel. That was a wonderful overview of CNES, and it's wonderful just to see that all of you agree, but still everyone sees things a bit different. So moving back to our area, and Uri, how do you see the Israel Space Agency taking place in advancing its national ecosystem in Israel, and how has it changed over the years?
So thanks very much, Deganit, for the questions and for the kind introduction. And what I would like to start with is say thanks you all. Lisa, Carlos, Lionel, and Salem, my friend, for joining us to the Ramon Space Conference. We are living in challenging times. All of us are fighting the pandemic, but the fact that we manage together, even virtually, and discuss present and future space issues, I think says a lot about the issue and about ourselves. So that's a great opportunity to thank you all. Going back to the question, what I think, what I would like to start with is to have a very quick analysis of what has changed. So in the base of the change, I think lies the access to space. Access to space is becoming much more easier and much cheaper. But at the same time, as been said early on in this discussion, technology allows us to do much more in space than ever before. So the big change that the agency needs to go through lies basically in the need to build a bridge between those evolving capabilities and the establishment of business, the business of space environment, as well as the broad needs of the nation. We need to be able to close this gap. And on the other hand, there are roles and activities that remain basically the same. There lies in the nature of the agency activities, but the nature of those activities has been changed. The fact, as Lionel just mentioned, the fact that there is new non-government players, national and international players that join the field that used to be occupied by government and big companies, the fact that there are new players there says that we need to change. We need to find ways to let them flourish, to let them thrive. In that regard, I think that is probably one of the biggest changes that we need to go as an agency, and in order to be still very, very relevant in these huge changing times.
Thank you, Uri. And the next question goes to Salem and Lionel, representing an established space agency and an emerging space agency. So we know that space agencies advance national space efforts and ecosystems using different models. And in your perspective, what practices do you identify as the most fruitful? Salem, please.
That's an excellent question. Let me speak on from this short, since the inception of the space agency in UAE about 8 years ago, we have strived to make ample use and of the space ecosystem in general. At the UAE Space Agency, we believe that the space sector has a key role to play in building knowledge-driven economy. by enabling the national space industry, building capabilities, supporting research and development, and stimulating innovation. We are preparing the UAE for the next 50 years of growth and human progress. At this agency, we are leveraging space for the benefit of humankind. This includes deepening collaboration and cooperation with the public and private sectors and international peers. The enhancing ties with global partners and actively contributing to global dialogue for the purpose of meeting our legal obligations under the United Nations treaties on outer space and the long-term sustainability guidelines. Simultaneously, we are building capabilities in advancing industries and upskilling our new generations of talent. Ambitious space exploration projects will continue to drive our progress. The aim is to pursue scientific discovery and accelerate the development of innovation and knowledge-based enterprises in the UAE, thus strengthening the private sector, creating jobs and investment opportunities.
Thank you. Lionel, what are your thoughts on that?
Thanks. I said it a little bit, but we have changed a lot of practice to develop this new space ecosystem, because we have both new users and new actors to deal with. And for years, for 10 years, for 50 years, we have worked with, when I speak about users, with military people for defense using space. We know them from the very beginning. And with scientific people using space, and we know them from the very beginning. And that's it. And now we have to deal with fisheries, land management, politicians, insurance people, and so on. It is a new job for us. And how to do that? We had to develop that, and we created a new directorate for that, with people in charge of making the interaction with these new domains. And the interaction is made not by explaining to these guys what is space, very interesting, very important, with big satellites, with ISS and so on. They don't care about that. But we speak with them about their needs, their jobs, their work, their daily work, and understanding their problems. We can understand, or we can propose to them solution using space data. And this is a very important development we had in CNES to create these links. Secondly, the new actors. And as I said, the first point is empathy, is to listen to them. Because, you know, once again, we have been used to work with big industry, with very experienced people like us, like people in CNES working from space for 30 years. And now we have some startups with 2-3 guys, 24 years old, saying, I have this idea, I was to develop that. And the first reflex of a very high specialist, he said, oh, I don't have time to deal with that. I have to deal with my big project. And so please, maybe later. We have to change that and to oblige people to listen to them and to work with them. This is also very new, and to make them understand that they have to learn a lot from this new way to develop things and to innovate and so on. So this is a change of mindset. And as I said also, we develop new tools, concrete tools, to deal with this new development of ecosystem, which is ideation. We have built at CNES and then with ESA, and now it is a worldwide hackathon, which is Act in Space. It is developing everywhere, and it is very important to make ideation and to make young people have new ideas about space, to developing application, and not only, even infrastructure space. We have created last year the first worldwide incubator about the moon activity, which is Take the Moon. And here we help people working on new ideas for the moon exploration, but with also application on Earth, because we can have both interesting ideas for the moon tomorrow and for us today. So we help these new ideas. We have built a German-French accelerator. We accelerate startups for some months with a specialist for working with them about business model, about technical aspect, and so on. And then we propose these startups to investors in France and in Germany. It is new, and we have our first promotion of 10 startups accelerated by this accelerator called Space Founders. And as I said, we have developed also a specific financial tools as Cosmic Capital, which is a French investment fund, the first one devoted to space startups and to put the money to space startup and to help them. So it is a lot of change in our organization, in our mindset, and in our tools we have implemented in CNES to help this development.
Thank you, Lionel, for the deep look at the national level. And from that, I want to move to Carlos and ask you, from your extensive international experience and looking on the international level, in what way does your agency benefit by integrating into large, long-term projects of space exploration and exploitation when we're talking about advancing the national capabilities and capacities?
Okay, thank you, Deganit. We have started our activities in the early 60s, first with the United States, with NASA, doing some kind of studies on the ionosphere and with small sounding rockets, and then also with France. So those are our backgrounds. The Space Agency was created 28 years ago, so we are the new players in the domain. But what we perceived, and we are trying to move, is that we were for decades devoted to research and development. So this is good on one side, good for science, for some technological developments also, but we were very apart from the market itself. As Lionel mentioned, we have great users, great consumers of space information. And Brazil is a huge market. If we consider agriculture, oil and gas, energy, they are good investors, and they buy information, they buy services from abroad. So what we are trying to do, and taking into account the new space environment with miniaturization, small satellites, nano satellites, and things like so, we are trying to demonstrate to them that maybe they can perform better their activities if they use space applications. Some of them are already available. Some of them should be implemented. One example of that, after a very extreme event we had in the southeast of our country 2 years ago, we perceived that for civil defense, we would need a kind of data collection system that could allow the short time prediction. We should anticipate events in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And this kind of system was not available. And then we started working with that region, and we designed a very small constellation. It should start with 12 nanosatellites. And this kind of constellation will help civil defense. But once we started that, the great economic sectors like agriculture and oil and gas and renewable energy, they saw that this could be very helpful for them. So what we are trying to do now is how to expand this constellation. It will be a kind of a consortium. every organization can join its satellite or such kind of infrastructure or algorithms or whatever, how they can benefit from that. So this is the main shift we perceived in the Brazil environment. We still continue with the research and development institution, with the academic sector, but we are trying to work more on the downstream. Brazil is maybe one of the few countries that can perform in all the segments, access to space, satellites, and the applications also, but certainly we should develop more the downstream. We have a lot of universities in Brazil giving courses and graduate courses on space and aerospace, but some of those new professionals, they go abroad because they do not have a, how can I say, a very productive ecosystem in Brazil. So our idea is doing something like people in the United Emirates and Israel, they do. They support the initiative of the youngers, the startups, and then we can create solutions for our problems, for our region also. For example, we have in the South Atlantic, the South Atlantic anomaly. This jeopardize communication, GPS silence, everything. So how can we study better this phenomena and devise solutions for our region, South America and Africa also? So these are one of the examples we perceived in our situation now. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. And back to you, Lisa. What work is your agency undertaking to foster the next generation of the Space Force, of the workforce? We've heard some of the speakers here talk about it, but what is Canada undertaking?
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to hear everyone's views and the exciting future that we have before us. So behind every space mission is computer programmers, AI specialists, scientists, mathematicians, physicists, lawyers, engineers, policy experts, people who are expert in finance and project management. It really is the jobs of the future. And I just want to give a big shout out to all of my colleagues because these are challenging times. What we've seen is the space sector is incredibly resilient and it's grown. Despite the challenges of the pandemic, we've seen incredible growth in these resilient companies. And our innovation economies depend on this highly skilled, diversified technical workforce. So we have a number of projects to engage students from a very young age through to graduate and postgraduate work, and then to support them when they start companies and work in academia and work in really innovative companies. Our Canadian CubeSat project provides professors in post-secondary institutions with an opportunity to engage students in developing real space missions. The CubeSats will be launched to and deployed from the International Space Station in 2021-2022. And I had a chance to meet some students recently on the East Coast in Canada, and they said, you know, we used to think this was inaccessible, but now, having done it, having had hands-on experience, I see that I too can become part of the space economy, and it's incredibly empowering. Our FAST program for Canadian research offers hands-on experience in space-like missions to students and young researchers. We've launched a Deep Space Food Challenge. We're collaborating with NASA and inviting academia and industry to take part in a competition to develop new ways of producing food for future space missions and deep space, while expanding opportunities for food production here on Earth. We also have a space capacity development program, supporting activities from pre-mission research and development, timely flight demonstration, and also developing the space workforce of tomorrow. We're going to need these people if we want to position our space sector to seize global opportunities. We also sponsor students to participate in conferences like the International Astronautical Congress and partner with the International Student Education Board. We work with partners around the world because we want to learn from one another and open up opportunities for students to gain diverse experiences. As well, when we're doing projects like building Canadarm3 for the Lunar Gateway, we do education along the way. So we have a working group on education that includes the European Space Agency, NASA, and JAXA to build an education program while we're developing the Lunar Gateway so that both are perfectly integrated. And then the last thing I'll mention is our STRATUS, our stratospheric atmospheric balloon program that provides researchers and students access to stratospheric balloons launched in Canada.
Thank you, Lisa. This is very inspirational. Uri, listening to all the speakers here, I want to ask you, what work does the Israel Space Agency is undertaking to bring space technology down to Israel and terrestrial tech and research up to space?
Yeah, thanks again. And the good part in being the last speaker of the circle is to realize how big and solid is the common ground that we are standing on. Because I just listened to my colleagues and friends, and basically we're almost using the same words. So it's amazing. It's amazing to see. Going back to the question. And I will use again the term of bridges, because I think what we are trying to do is to bridge again between the needs and the capabilities. What we are trying to do in that regard is, first of all, to listen to the needs. And most important right now is to listen to the needs of the national needs, of the different national needs. And then we are trying to merge them with the existing capabilities or the capabilities that we can evolve and build in the near future. I will take, for example, the area of the environmental needs. What we are trying to do is to sit with all the players that are relevant to that and try to understand their needs. We understand that we can use remote sensing capabilities and advanced data processing technologies for using all those capabilities to enable much better coping with climate change and challenges that result of the climate change issues. Once we are sitting with them, we realize much better the needs, and we present them how easy space could use with addressing those needs. And what we are trying to do again is to bridge between the needs and the capabilities. And what we find out that once we are sitting together at the same room, discuss issues of, for example, environmental issues, we find those bridged very, very easily. And then the idea of closing the gap by cooperation within the nation and outside the nation, it is one of the things that we are trying to do. Another example, for example, is food security. Food security is it's a huge issue. And what we understand, what we can provide much more accurate agriculture using space technology. So we are trying to connect those dots as well. In addition to that, what we are trying to do in Israel is to encourage up-to-date repurposing of space capabilities for Earth needs. One example is one of the startups that basically start with trying to take out oxygen of the moon soil. They realize they can use very relevant technology in Earth to do things with iron. So in that sense, what we are trying to find out is the way, again, to use or to do repurposing for technologies that start in space but could go back to Earth. The way we are doing that, as mentioned before by my friends, is trying to support those startups, and not only startups, some of them are relatively old space industries, but with new ideas. And what we are trying to do is to help them sometimes with funding, help them with agreements, help them with opening doors, basically to be an enabler to all those ideas. And what we are finding out, and that's amazing to see, how many ideas are starting to run in the field of space. And in that regard, as been mentioned earlier, we are living in fascinating times.
Thank you, Uri. And before we conclude, I have one last question for all of you. Please be kind and provide very, very short answers. What would success look like for your agency a decade from now? Lisa, let's start with you.
A vibrant space sector in Canada, a welcoming place to do business, a space ecosystem where everyone can see themselves in the space sector and they understand the power of international collaboration. They are inspired by it. I mentioned earlier the James Webb Space Telescope, and we saw when it launched in December that it did capture everyone's imagination, and it gives us the perspective that we need now. More than ever, as we face complex problems on Earth, we can find solutions to food insecurity, to climate issues, to new technologies. It's possible when we collaborate together. So we are very excited about a future where there's a role for national space agencies, industry, researchers, and the workforce of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Salem, now to you.
Yes.
What would success look like for the UAE?
Great question to conclude. From the UAE side, the space agency, we measure, I guess, a decade from now, the success will be largely defined by our contribution to a robust national space economy. This is also on how effectively we have implemented the UAE National Space Strategy 2030, how much we achieved from our space science technology policy that has been launched already, how the policy sets the general technology and scientific priorities for the UAE space industry, and how vibrant this industry, how innovative it is, and most, something that would pleases me a decade from now is how much business-to-business cooperation are done. We don't want to stop at agency cooperation. I want to see more of business-to-business in the space ecosystem.
Thank you. Carlos.
Well, looking in the medium term, our main objective is to really transform the space sector in very important economic sector, as is the aviation industry for Brazil. So we want to give more solutions, Brazilian solutions to our problems, and also insert our industry in the global chain value. And in order to do that, we do believe in cooperation, in joint projects. We are already discussing some points with United Emirates, with Israel also. So I believe we can, in the following years, start with some projects. We certainly are working in the regulation. We are trying to establish a new space law in Brazil. So we believe it will be ready. We have updated our regulations in terms of space launch activities. We are following the FAA experience. So we believe that in the medium term, we will have a very stable regulation in Brazil in terms of access to space and also in terms of space situational awareness. And finally, I would like to have in Brazil investors, not only the public investment, but we want to be able to attract the Brazilian investors, foreign investors, to really develop our space economic sector here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Uri, what will success look like for you?
Yeah, thanks very much. That's a great questions that demand some visionary imagination. But I think first and foremost, the growth of space sector. And that will be measured in business parameters, sales, jobs, investment, etc. But that's the first thing. The second thing that is related very much to it is promoting space science and technology. And in that regard, success, I guess, will be measured by academic parameters, quantity and the variety of researchers and articles, scientific breakthroughs, etc., etc. We are putting a lot of effort in that regard. I hope we'll have some very good news in the future. And I think another parameter is the way we can expand the overall circle of opportunities. And we need to do that through collaboration and joining and international processes based on our shared values and interests. And with that, for example, the Israeli joining to the Artemis agreements that just happened is a very, very important step. Thank you very much.
Congratulations for that. Lionel, last but not least.
Thank you. A lot of things to say, but to be short, big and efficient space ecosystem, space data used for a lot of solutions for non-space domains, a society prepared, well prepared to use space, a youth inspired by space, and last but not least, sustainable space activity.
Thank you very much. And with that, we conclude. I want to thank you for helping me make the case for space agencies to continue doing their excellent work. And listening to you, I summarized a little bit. So we talked about the need to create infrastructures to serve as a bridge, to provide empathy, collaborations, and consortiums, and identify, I think, the opportunities, and above all, to inspire and capture the imagination. And maybe if I need to summarize everything in one sentence, is maybe create the new language of space. So thank you all for joining us today from afar. Lisa Campbell, Salem Qubaisi, Carlos de Moura, Lionel Suchet, and not so from afar, from close by, Oron. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and thank you for joining us.